There's a quiet secret that experienced gardeners have known for generations, and most people never figure it out until they've wasted years of time, money, and energy on a garden that demands more than it gives back. The secret is this: some of the most powerful, most useful, and most rewarding plants you can grow require almost nothing from you. No daily watering schedules, no complicated fertilizer routines, no weekends lost to weeding and worrying. Just a patch of soil, a little sunlight, and the wisdom to know which plants to choose. Most people think gardening has to be hard. They imagine it as a second job, a constant battle against pests and weather and time. And for some gardens, that's exactly what it is. But herbs and spices, that's a completely different story. Many of the most useful herbs on the planet are survivors by nature. They evolved in rocky hillsides, dry Mediterranean climates, and forgotten corners of the world where nobody was watering them. They thrive on neglect. In fact, some of them grow better when you leave them alone. And here's what makes this even more exciting. These aren't just pretty plants that smell nice. These are plants with centuries of history, plants that traditional healers relied on, plants that once stocked the apothecary shelves of our great-grandparents, plants that can flavor your meals, support your health, and save you real money at the grocery store every single week. And most of them can be growing in your backyard, your porch, or even a few containers on your windowsill. Today we're going to talk about 11 herbs and spices that are perfect for busy people, for anyone who wants a garden that works for them instead of the other way around. Some of these are familiar. A few of them might surprise you completely, and at least one of them might just change the way you think about what a garden can be. But before we get into the first plant, there's something worth understanding about why so many people give up on gardening in the first place. It usually isn't laziness. It usually isn't a lack of love for growing things. Most people give up because they started with the wrong plants. They planted vegetables that need constant attention, constant watering, constant protection from every bug that comes along. And when life got busy, as it always does, the garden suffered, and so did their motivation. Herbs are different. Herbs are forgiving. Herbs are resilient. And once you understand which ones to grow and why, you'll realize that a useful, beautiful, productive garden doesn't have to take over your life. It can fit right into it. So let's start with a plant that almost everyone has heard of, but very few people understand just how extraordinary it really is. Rosemary is one of those plants that seems almost too good to be true. It's evergreen, which means it looks beautiful year-round in most climates. It's drought-tolerant, so forgetting to water it for a week or two isn't a disaster. And it grows into a full, aromatic shrub that you can harvest from again and again without ever replanting. Once it's established in your garden, rosemary essentially takes care of itself. But the most surprising part is the history behind this plant. Rosemary has been used for thousands of years, not just in cooking, but as a symbol of memory and remembrance. Ancient Greek scholars wore rosemary garlands while studying because they believed it sharpened the mind. And modern research has actually started to back that up. Studies have found that compounds in rosemary may support cognitive function and improve memory recall. One study found that simply being in a room diffused with rosemary aroma had measurable effects on performance in memory tests. Whether you believe in that or not, there's no question that rosemary tastes extraordinary on roasted chicken, potatoes, and bread. And having it just steps from your kitchen door is one of those simple pleasures that never gets old. To grow rosemary, give it well-drained soil and a sunny spot. It absolutely hates sitting in wet soil, so if you're in a rainy climate, make sure it has good drainage or grow it in a raised bed or container. In colder regions, it may not survive a hard winter outdoors, but it does beautifully in a pot that you can bring inside when temperatures drop. One plant is usually enough to keep a whole family well-stocked. Now, right alongside rosemary on the list of almost indestructible herbs, you'll find thyme. And thyme might actually be the most underrated plant in this entire conversation. It's low-growing, spreading gently across the ground, and it's so hardy that some varieties can be planted between stepping stones in a garden path and actually walked on without damage. That alone tells you something about its toughness. Thyme has been used medicinally for an extraordinarily long time. During the Middle Ages in Europe, it was used as a remedy for chest congestion and coughs. The active compound thymol, which you might recognize as an ingredient in mouthwash and throat lozenges, is found naturally in thyme. For centuries, herbalists made thyme tea to soothe sore throats and ease breathing during cold and flu season. And what many gardeners don't realize is that thyme is also a powerful companion plant. Planting it near cabbages and other vegetables is said to deter certain pests, and its flowers attract pollinators by the dozens. It does double duty in any garden. From a culinary standpoint, thyme is one of those herbs that works in almost everything. Soups, stews, roasted meats, eggs, sauces, even homemade breads. It's a kitchen staple that, fresh from your own garden, has a depth of flavor that dried thyme from a jar simply cannot match. Give it full sun, lean soil, and occasional trimming to keep it bushy and productive, and it will reward you season after season. Moving on, let's talk about a plant that has been dividing opinions for centuries: mint. Now, if you've ever grown mint before, you know it's not exactly shy. It spreads enthusiastically, which is exactly why some gardeners avoid it and exactly why it belongs on this list. Because that vigorous, spreading nature means mint essentially takes care of itself once it gets going. You don't need to coddle it. You don't need to fuss over it. You just need to give it a container or a defined bed, and it will fill that space with lush, fragrant leaves that you can harvest whenever you want. What's fascinating about mint is how many varieties exist, each with its own distinct personality. Peppermint, spearmint, apple mint, chocolate mint, lemon mint, even pineapple mint. Each one smells and tastes slightly different, and each one has its own character in the kitchen and the medicine cabinet. Mint tea has been used for centuries to settle upset stomachs, ease indigestion, and calm tension headaches. It's one of those plants that bridges the gap between food and medicine in the most natural way imaginable. And here's a bonus most people don't think about. Fresh mint in the garden deters several common garden pests and even helps repel mice when placed near entry points. Growing it in pots near your porch or kitchen door has practical benefits well beyond the kitchen. From mint, we move to a plant that carries a very different energy but an equally impressive reputation: oregano. If you've ever tasted a pizza or a pasta sauce made with fresh oregano versus the dried stuff from a supermarket jar, you already understand why this plant earns its place here. The difference is remarkable, but oregano's story goes much deeper than Italian cooking. The name oregano comes from the Greek words meaning joy of the mountains, and that origin tells you everything about where this plant came from and how it grows. In the wild, oregano grows on rocky, sun-drenched hillsides around the Mediterranean with no irrigation, no fertilizer, and very little fuss. Bring that same plant into your garden, give it decent sun and decent drainage, and it will flourish with minimal attention. Oregano was used by ancient Greek and Roman physicians as a remedy for wounds, infections, and digestive troubles. Modern herbalists still value it highly, particularly for its antimicrobial and antioxidant properties. Oil of oregano has become enormously popular in recent years as a natural supplement. And while the concentrated oil is quite different from the culinary herb, they come from the same plant family and share many of the same active compounds. One generous plant will give you far more oregano than most families can use, and it comes back year after year in most climates without you doing a thing. Now, this next plant might be the most overlooked of all, and that's honestly a shame, because sage is remarkable. Not just as a culinary herb, which it absolutely is, but as a plant with one of the longest and most interesting histories of any herb we're going to discuss today. Sage has been used ceremonially by indigenous cultures across North America for centuries. It has been burned, brewed, and applied in traditional healing practices across cultures ranging from Native American to ancient Roman. The botanical name for common garden sage, Salvia officinalis, comes from the Latin word salver, meaning to be saved or to be in good health. The ancient Romans used it as a general tonic, believing that it could extend life and protect against disease. In the kitchen, sage is extraordinary with roasted meats, in stuffing, in brown butter sauces, in pasta, and paired with beans. It has a strong, distinctive flavor that goes a long way, so a little of it covers a lot of meals. From a growing perspective, sage is another sun-loving, drought-tolerant plant that prefers lean soil over rich, wet conditions. It can grow into a quite beautiful shrub over time, with soft, silvery green leaves and gorgeous purple flower spikes in summer that attract bees like nothing else. What many gardeners don't realize is that sage also works wonderfully in containers, which means even if you have just a porch or a balcony, you can have this ancient, storied plant growing right outside your door. Let's shift for a moment from the Mediterranean herbs to something a little more adventurous. Lemon balm. If you've never grown lemon balm, you're in for a pleasant surprise. It belongs to the mint family, which already tells you it's going to be vigorous and easy growing. And it has this beautiful, light citrus fragrance that's genuinely uplifting to be around. Lemon balm has a long history as a calming herb. It was traditionally used in Europe as a remedy for anxiety, stress, and sleep troubles. Monks in medieval monasteries grew it in their physic gardens specifically for this purpose, and it was so commonly used to ease tension and promote restful sleep that it became one of the most widely grown herbs in the world. Today it's commonly found in herbal sleep teas and relaxation supplements. From a purely practical standpoint, lemon balm makes a wonderful tea on its own or blended with mint, chamomile, or honey. The fresh leaves can also be used in salads, with fish, and in homemade lemonades and infused waters. It grows easily in partial shade, which is actually useful if your garden doesn't get full sun all day. And once established, it will come back every year and slowly spread into a generous clump that you can divide and share with friends. And speaking of things that are generous, let's talk about chives. Chives might be one of the most overlooked plants on this entire list, and they deserve far more credit than they typically get. They're perennials, which means you plant them once and they come back every single spring without any effort on your part. They're one of the very first plants to emerge in early spring, sometimes pushing up through the ground before the last frost has even fully passed. And they produce beautiful purple flowers in late spring that are not only edible, but also absolutely stunning in the garden. The flavor of fresh chives is delicate and oniony, perfect sprinkled over eggs, soups, baked potatoes, salads, and cream cheese. But here's something that surprises a lot of people. Chives also have genuine health benefits that go beyond the kitchen. Like all members of the allium family, which includes garlic, onions, and leeks, chives contain compounds that have been studied for their potential to support heart health and immune function. The ancient Chinese used alliums medicinally for thousands of years, and modern science has found compelling reasons to take that traditional wisdom seriously. Grow chives in any sunny spot with reasonable soil, and they will thrive. They need almost no maintenance beyond an occasional trim, which you're already doing when you harvest them. Divide the clumps every few years to keep them vigorous, and you'll have more chives than you know what to do with. If you're finding value in this conversation and you want to keep learning about gardening, natural living, and growing your own food, this would be a great moment to hit that like button and subscribe. There's so much more coming, and it would mean a lot to have you along for the journey. Now, let's talk about a plant that takes us in a slightly different direction. Chamomile. If you've ever had a cup of chamomile tea before bed, you already know something of what this plant can do. But growing your own chamomile is an experience that goes well beyond the tea bag. The small daisy-like flowers are absolutely charming in the garden. The whole plant has a gentle apple-like fragrance when you brush against it, and harvesting the flowers on a warm afternoon for drying is one of those slow, satisfying garden tasks that feels almost like a form of meditation. Chamomile has been used for thousands of years across many different cultures. Ancient Egyptians associated it with the sun and used it in sacred rituals. European herbalists relied on it for everything from digestive complaints to skin inflammation to children's fevers. And even today, chamomile remains one of the most consumed herbal teas in the world, which is a testament to just how universal and trusted this plant has become. There are two main types, German chamomile and Roman chamomile, and both are easy to grow. German chamomile is an annual that self-seeds freely, meaning once you plant it the first time, it tends to come back year after year on its own by dropping its seeds. Roman chamomile is a perennial ground cover. Either one will give you an abundant supply of flowers to dry and store for tea throughout the year. Now here's where we take a turn into something that many Western gardeners overlook entirely: turmeric. Growing turmeric in your own garden or even in a large container is more achievable than most people think, and the rewards are extraordinary. Turmeric has become famous in recent years as a powerful anti-inflammatory ingredient, and while health claims always deserve a degree of caution, the research around curcumin, the active compound in turmeric, is genuinely impressive and has been building for decades. But what's really remarkable is that turmeric is not a new discovery at all. In Ayurvedic medicine, the traditional healing system of India, turmeric has been used for at least 4,000 years. It was used to treat wounds, support digestion, reduce inflammation, and promote overall vitality. In many Indian households, turmeric is simply part of daily life, included in meals as a matter of routine, the way salt and pepper are used in Western cooking. Growing turmeric requires a longer warm season, so if you're in a colder climate, starting it indoors or in containers is the smart approach. It grows from rhizomes, which look similar to ginger root, and it produces beautiful tropical-looking foliage throughout the summer. Harvest in late fall, and what you pull from the soil will be far more vibrant and flavorful than anything you'll find dried in a jar at the grocery store. And since we're talking about roots, we absolutely have to talk about ginger. If there's one plant on this list that consistently surprises people when they realize they can grow it at home, it's ginger. Most people think of it as an exotic tropical plant that belongs in a greenhouse or a distant country, but ginger grows beautifully in containers, on a shaded porch, or in a warm, sheltered garden bed, and a single rhizome purchased from a grocery store can get you started right now. Ginger has an enormous history spanning thousands of years and dozens of cultures. It was one of the most valuable spices in the ancient spice trade, sought by Romans, traded across the Middle East, and revered in Asian traditional medicine. Chinese healers used it for nausea, cold and flu symptoms, and circulatory support going back at least 2,000 years. Ayurvedic practitioners called it a universal medicine. And to this day, fresh ginger tea with honey and lemon is one of the most common home remedies for nausea, sore throats, and cold symptoms around the world. Ginger prefers warmth, humidity, and indirect light, which actually makes it a wonderful houseplant or container plant. It grows slowly and steadily through summer, and by fall you'll have a beautifully fragrant root to harvest, use in the kitchen, and replant a portion of for next year. And this next plant may be the most overlooked of all when it comes to home growing. Most people have heard of it. Many people use it in cooking, but almost nobody thinks to grow it at home, and that's a real missed opportunity. We're talking about bay laurel. The humble bay leaf is used in soups, stews, broths, rice dishes, and sauces across dozens of cuisines. And yet most people buy dried bay leaves from a packet that has been sitting on a shelf for who knows how long. Fresh bay leaves are a completely different experience. The fragrance is more complex, the flavor is more nuanced, and having a bay laurel tree growing on your porch or in your garden feels wonderfully old-fashioned and self-sufficient. Bay laurel has an ancient and storied history. The laurel wreath of ancient Greece and Rome, the symbol of victory, honor and achievement worn by emperors and poets, was made from the branches of this same plant. It was also used medicinally by the ancient Greeks and Romans for everything from joint pain to digestive complaints. And what many gardeners don't realize is that it's genuinely easy to grow in a container. It grows slowly and does beautifully as a potted plant that can live on a porch or patio for years with minimal care. In warmer climates, it can grow into a substantial tree outdoors. Either way, once you have one, you'll have a steady supply of bay leaves for life. We've covered 10 remarkable herbs and spices now, each one easier to grow than most people realize, each one bringing something unique and valuable to your kitchen, your health, and your everyday life. But the 11th on our list might be the one that ties everything together in the most elegant way. Lavender. There's almost nothing else in the plant world that offers what lavender offers. The scent alone has been shown in studies to reduce anxiety and improve sleep quality. The flowers are edible, used in everything from herbal teas to baked goods to honey to cocktails. Dried bunches have been used for centuries to repel insects and freshen linens. And as a garden plant, lavender is one of the most strikingly beautiful things you can grow, with tall purple flower spikes rising above silver-green foliage from midsummer onward. Like so many of the plants we've discussed today, lavender comes from the Mediterranean, which means it's built for sun and drought. Once established, it needs very little water. It asks for well-drained soil, plenty of sunlight, and an annual trim after flowering to keep it tidy and productive. Beyond that, it largely takes care of itself. Traditional uses of lavender span hundreds of years. It was placed in bath water by the ancient Romans. It was used as a wound disinfectant during World War I. It has been a staple of herbal medicine for stress, sleep, and skin care across European folk traditions for centuries. And today, dried lavender from your own garden can fill sachets for drawers and closets, be added to homemade soaps and balms, or simply dried in bunches that make your home smell extraordinary all winter long. So let's look back at what we've covered today, because the picture it paints is really quite beautiful. Rosemary, thyme, mint, oregano, sage, lemon balm, chives, chamomile, turmeric, ginger, and lavender. 11 plants, each one with a personality of its own. Each one with deep roots in human history and traditional wisdom. Each one offering practical, real-world value that extends far beyond just flavor in the kitchen. What these plants share, beyond their low-maintenance nature, is a kind of generosity. They give back far more than you put in. They ask for a little sun, a little soil, a little water here and there, and in return they supply you with ingredients that would cost you real money at a store, remedies that have supported human health for thousands of years, and a connection to the natural world that does something good for your mind and your spirit in ways that are hard to fully put into words. There's a reason that grandmothers around the world in every culture have always kept herb gardens. It wasn't because they had so much time on their hands. It was because they understood something fundamental about self-sufficiency, about taking care of their families, about having something living and useful just outside the door. That wisdom doesn't expire. It's just as valuable now as it ever was. If you've been telling yourself that you don't have time to garden, I hope today has offered a gentle challenge to that story. Because these 11 plants don't need your time. They need your intention. They need you to put them in the ground or in a pot or on a windowsill and then let them do what they've always done. Thrive. Start with just one or two. Pick the ones that excite you most. Give them a home and see what happens. And if you want to keep learning about growing your own food, exploring herbal wisdom, and building a life that's a little more self-sufficient and a little less dependent on the grocery store shelf, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Because there's a whole world of growing knowledge still to explore, and we're just getting started.